So I've been reading this book, Tabular Modeling. Um, it's from the Microsoft Press. It was written, I believe, in 2017, and it's probably a little outdated. The thing is that if you use Microsoft Power BI, you use analysis services every single day. You see, Power BI under the hood, once you peel everything back, is simply a tabular model. And that's why the most recent launch of the TMDL editor in Power BI Desktop was such a big deal because it brings visibility to that tabular model to the average user. Now, I'm reading this book because I frankly am not as familiar with analysis services as I should be, but I did come across probably a little bit of a workaround for something that I don't think you want to show your business users, but is super useful when you need to get data out of Power BI into Excel for just that one-off use case. So let's jump into the computer and let me show you what I'm talking about. So here I am logged into my Power BI workspace, and here is each one of my semantic models corresponding to one of the reports that I have in my workspace. Each one of these semantic models is its own cube or tabular model. And if I go ahead and I right click them and then go new query, I can write a query in DAX against my tabular model. So in this case, right, I can go evaluate, and then I can go all, right? And then I can tell it to return a table name, which I believe in this table is called launches, Launches. Now, when I run this, I'll go ahead and I'll get the entire table out of that data set. And you might be wondering, well, what the heck does this have to do with Excel? And I'm about to show you. You see, when you go into Excel and you go from Power Platform, and then I don't have it enabled on this tenant, but you go get data from Power BI, what you're really doing is you're really just creating a query against these models. And Excel has this really fun, fancy feature called Power Pivot that allows you to do data modeling within Excel itself. So you might have noticed, right, if you go over to data and then click data model and then manage data model, you might see Power Pivot pop up. Now, where we start to blend a little bit of two worlds is Power Pivot is also essentially building a tabular model. What you can do is you can connect to your Power BI data set or your Power BI workspace via its XMLA endpoint and import in specific pieces of data via DAX queries from multiple semantic models all over, and then blend them all in Power Pivot. So you have a completely new standalone Excel model that works perfectly. So let me just show you how I would execute that SQL query, right? So if I go get data and instead going from Power Platform, I go from database, from SQL Server analysis here, and I put in my workspace, and then I go Nike sneaker calendar, which I believe was the name of the semantic model, right? And then I copy over that exact same DAX query and run it. What it is then going to do is it's then going to pop open Power Query, which I can then go load to, go create only connection, and add this data to my Power Pivot data model, which then, when I go into the data model, has essentially taken my DAX query, right, that I wrote against that Power BI semantic model and has brought it in as a table into my Excel file. And I could do this with multiple data sets and multiple tables through multiple DAX queries, and I could create and manage relationships between that data that I could then use in a super fancy Excel workbook. So what's the actual use case for this? Because if you're taking a look at this, what you might be thinking is, well, why not just build an entirely new Power BI model? And the answer is if you can build an entirely new Power BI model, this probably isn't the solution for you. What I've been found this is super useful for is when I have an end user who just needs to hit the refresh button in Excel and have it pull all the data from a bunch of different reports and pop it into different tables on different tabs all over, right? That's what this is great for. This is not great for anything other than a hack and something that you need to just put together really quickly in order to solve a requirement. So if you found this interesting, consider subscribing and liking this video, and probably don't implement what I just showed you in a production scenario if you can avoid it. And with that, I hope you have a good evening.